What is the scariest thing you can think of? Now, make it scarier. Make it have larger teeth, bigger claws, a menacing growl. What is that new thing you just created? Maybe what you thought of is something like this. This is a monster from the Dead Space remake. You have to tear it apart limb from limb to beat it. It's truly frightening. Although that is scary, it's not the scariest. I kind of tricked you in that series of questions. The monster you probably made isn't that realistic. And also what's scary for one person may not be scary for all people. But one of the scariest things out there is the unknown. But why? Because your brain will fill in the blank. It will always fill in the blank. Think of a horror film. The villain of that story is probably not that scary by itself. The villain of most popular horror shows are not that scary usually. A clown, a nun, a kid. The number one rule of horror is don't show the monster. And that works relatively well. The reason those things are scary is not because of what they are, it is what they do. It's like being scared of an unknown noise in the dark, or seeing a shadow in the middle of your room at night, and you don't know what it is. The game Omori does this well. The monster appears as a blob for almost all the game session. The only name you give it is something. It is literally called something. The video game genre is notorious for having bad horror games, but there are a few good ones, like FNAF and Lethal Company, but even that gets stale after a while. While playing Omori, I felt horror to my very core. And that is something I do not say often. It wasn't just horror I felt, it was something more. Dread. But what makes Omori stand out is not the horror, but the story. By the end of the game you know what the monster is, and by itself it's not that scary. By learning what the monster is, and learning how it came to be, all the power it had are gone. Most people are scared of the dark, also known as the unknown. But why? I think it's because we are not afraid of what is actually there, but what could. Walking downstairs at night, walking around when it's pitch black, camping. These things are all scary in their own right. And what's scarier is doing it alone. Fear of the unknown and fear of isolation are not too dissimilar. Your vision is being obscured by the hazy night. Every step you take is being louder due to the crunchy leaves. And all of a sudden, you hear a bush rustling near you. The first thought that would pop into your head is definitely not the most probable. But it is the scariest. That's why when a rabbit pops out you would first be shook before being hit with relief. We as humans always think of the worst case scenario. Things we don't know will scare us. But there is a slight contradiction here. Humans do scary things all the time. Camping, cave exploration. The list just is endless. Cave exploration takes fear of the unknown and takes it to another level. But people do it. They like doing it. And they probably don't like being scared. I think it's probably more so wanting to beat the unknown. Wanting to know what is actually there. doing things most humans are afraid to do. Usually in life, there are things much more scary than monsters, and sometimes that is ourselves. There is a song I like. Okay, wrong track. There is another song I like. A rapper being controlled by this other version of him. The other version tries to convince him, uses his insecurities, uses his emotions to make him do what he wants. He describes in the music video for what can take months to understand. The same thing can be said about the music video High Ren. In fact, this music video goes beyond just music. It is art. And Celeste takes this concept and condenses it down into a game. This is weird, right? Why do these games relate to us? In almost every one of these examples, the other side is depicted as a monster. A monster you have to lock away because you don't understand it. A monster that is inherently bad. And the last time I checked, I don't think I have a monster within me. There is definitely something else at play here. In a sense, that is the scariest kind of monster. A monster that knows all your secrets, all your insecurities, and uses them against you. A monster that knows you more than you. But you don't know it. You know yourself more than anyone else. Well, that may be true. I still don't know who I am, who I want to be, what I should be doing with my life. These examples are scary, not because of what they are, but who you are. Why do we play horror games and watch horror movies? Do we just like being scared? Maybe. But I think there is another answer. People don't just like being scared. I think it's because we want to feel like we can beat the unknown. The unknown thing that is stopping you will get beaten. And you will be the one to do it. The one to overcome fear. We want to not be scared, but to overcome our insecurities. The scarier the game, the greater that feeling will be. There are other kinds of fear as well. Fear that may be scarier than most monsters. Have you ever spoken to a woman? Alright, let me back up a bit. Just fear of doing things is hard. Talking to a girl, touching a spider. Fear of doing things can be scary. Losing a bet, sending an embarrassing text, doing something stupid. They're all scary in their own right. We always in our head envision the worst, but almost always that envisionment is never true. But does it sound stupid if I envy people that can do that kind of stuff? I also have this other question. Should we be actively trying to find scary things to do? If you're scared of heights, would you climb a ladder? If you're scared of spiders, would you actively find one? If you're scared of water, should you try to swim? Because we can't do things in real life, we do it through movies and games, even songs instead. The more you're scared of spiders, the more you'll find spiders scary in video games. And also the more rewarding it will be once you complete that game. This is how the real world affects how you perceive games. In Omori, you have to overcome each and every one of your fears. The fear of climbing ladders, the fear of swimming, and the fear of spiders. But even I didn't crack that one yet. Or even all of them. The funny thing is that you can't progress in the game if you don't face your fears. Kind of sounds like life. But real life is much harder than any video game you'll ever play. And scarier. We don't know what we are doing. No one does. And worst of all, we only have one shot. This is why all of us are so scared to mess up. There is no going back. And because of this, most of us fill our lives with meaningless distractions. Because we are so scared to do things, scared to talk to people, scared to take risks, scared to do things we are unfamiliar with. Sometimes we are scared to do what we want. Celeste is a platformer, but calling it just that takes away from its beauty. Celeste is also a masterpiece in storytelling. But there is a part in Celeste which I have to talk about. In Celeste, there is a bad version of you who tries to stop you. And she will. The bad version of you that stops you doesn't stop you because she is evil or bad. She stops you because she is scared. Scared you won't be able to do it. Scared of you failing. You and Madeline, the main character, are not that different. We all have that bad version within us, and that is okay. But Madeline does something about it, and in the end, that makes a relatable story. One of the scariest things in a piece of media I've ever seen was probably Johan from Monster. Johan doesn't look scary though. He has no scary powers or traits. He looks normal enough. But what is scary about him is his lack of emotion. And his intelligence. He almost took over a whole country just from little bits of information he knew about some people. He is not scary due to how unrealistic he is, but how realistic he can be. He is truly a monster. A monster that knows you better than yourself. A monster that finds a fun in killing. But we see monsters like these all the time throughout history. But the question that lurks me is, are monsters like these born or made? Do we blame the human or the society that created them? If we don't fix the system, then surely more of these monsters will be created. Dune is a sci-fi fiction book about worms. They are massive and look unrealistic. It is quite a popular series. But why? What sets it apart from the others? Not many sci-fi books describes its monsters in detail. Because the author of this book describes these worms in so much detail. What they eat, how they reproduce, how they survive, even the anatomy of the worm. The author builds this whole world up and makes it sound like they can actually happen in reality. Everything somehow interacts with everything else in the ecosystem. What's scary is this monster sounds like it already exists. The scariest part of the game for me in Omori was also the most unexpected. Spoiler warning ahead. Near the end of Omori, you have to fight yourself. The final battle of this game, the battle this whole game builds up to, is with you. But the fight is a bit off. No matter what you do, nothing works. The other version, the seemingly bad version, kills you. Sometimes, overcoming your fears are near impossible. There is simply no way one can overcome each and every one of their fears. But we can get close, and in that journey we may find ourselves. Even if we fail, we are one step closer, and with every step comes that feeling of accomplishment, the feeling that we can do anything if we put a mind to it. There are things more scary than any monster you can imagine, and with that knowledge you may feel scared. And if that time comes, will you be running away or facing your fears? We are all scared of something. Even your idols, even the bravest people in the world are scared. I am scared. But what makes them brave is not that they don't feel fear. They feel it and do it anyway. What is the scariest thing I can think of? I don't know. Maybe it's a sandworm from June. Maybe it's Johan from Monster. Or it may even be talking to women. But whatever it is, I'll probably have to face it sometime in my life. And when I do, I will be prepared.